You are listening to the Vocal Advancement Podcast, and I am your host, Tom, joined by my lovely co-host, Heather.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Season 2 of the podcast.
It's been a while. We've been having a nice break.
I know.
And now we're back and raring to go again.
I know, somebody renewed us. Who would have thought?
Must have been a biscuit company or something.
Yeah, McVitie's. Over the course of the episodes, I'll slowly become surrounded by biscuits behind me. That's my plan.
Yeah, why not? So we broke over the festive season for a while, and we're back recording.
Yeah.
We're in, where are we? Beginning of February now.
Yeah.
We're recording, but obviously you'll be listening to this further along the way. So what did you do over Christmas, Tom?
I ate as much food as I possibly could.
That was an absolute must.
It was, yeah. I had a very nice Christmas and New Year. Yeah, lots of time with family and relaxing after a busy year. So I had a couple of weeks off to chill, ate lots of food. And yeah, it was really nice. How about you?
Yeah, same. We did lots of it was quite chilled. I had a nice chilled Christmas. We saw family, but we didn't overdo it this year. Sometimes Christmas gets a little bit manic, where you try to fit in seeing everybody you've ever met in your entire life.
Yes.
In the space of that 1 week. But no, we had a nice chilled out time. It was nice, and yeah. And then back to work and back to everything again and back to...
I know.
Yeah.
I was a bit later coming back to work than everybody else. It was quite nice.
Yeah, it's
Everybody
nice.
else
To be fair, my kids went back to school quite late, so I was only kind of just about getting back into work. Yeah. It's nice to have a break. It's good to have a break because then your brain's kind of rested and it works better after you've had a bit of time off. Downtime is important.
Oh, yeah. Although my brain frequently doesn't want to come back from downtime. It's like, no. It's like dragging and kicking and screaming as it drag it back to work. And then you're like, how is time gone so fast?
I get kind of bored of being off after a while. And I'm like, I'm ready and rearing to get going and do something different.
Oh, no, I love being off. And then it's like all the stuff that you haven't done in months. You're like, oh, I haven't had time because of work. It's like, oh, let's do this and let's do this and let's go here and let's go there.
Oh, I hear you. I did a jigsaw over Christmas. I can't remember the last time I had time to actually do a jigsaw.
Nice.
Rock and roll, my life, yeah.
I saw it.
I do it.
Do you know, I saw a jigsaw on YouTube the other day and I was trying to think who in my family that I didn't like the most because it's just evil. It's a jigsaw, 1,000-piece jigsaw, and the pieces are blank and see-through. So there's no picture, there's nothing at all.
Word.
I was like, oh, that's just evil to give that to somebody. Merry Christmas.
That would go straight to the charity shop.
But the woman in the video did it in like 2 hours. I'm like, you must be some kind of puzzle genius. She
my word.
Explained all her system. I'm like, we did the baked bean one that has like 100 pieces.
Oh, did you? Didn't
It took us days.
Word. Yeah, no. I like ones with nice, very obvious pictures, so I can...
Ages 4 and
I don't want a
up.
hard jigsaw. I just want one that I can copy the picture on the box and then feel proud of myself that I finished it. That's all.
Do you know what we do? We get these. Well, it's come a bit of a tradition. Like for my partner, at Christmas, his mum gives these mystery jigsaws, and it's like a cartoon. And like,
I know which ones you mean. My mum is obsessed with them.
Yeah, we really like them. Everybody in the picture is staring at something, and you've got to make the jigsaw of what they're staring at from the clues. It's really good.
Well, see, I keep looking at that because she always gives me the leftover ones to pass on to people, and I'm like, I don't know if I could manage that. I need a picture to copy.
No, it's good fun. It's good fun because there's lots of clues in it. Like you look at the reflection in the windows and stuff to see what it is.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, my mum's obsessed. In fact, I bought her one for Christmas this year.
Oh, yeah, we got one too.
Yeah, there we are.
Yay.
I love it. So we're back, and we are back with a new season.
Yeah.
That's the word for it. Series. I would call it a series, but Americans call it a season.
Season 2.
Season 2 of the Vocal Advancement Podcast. And we have a whole host of fabulous guests lined up
We
to
do.
interview this season.
Yeah.
Who we're going to be speaking to?
Well, we've got 10 lovely guests joining us for this season. So we have Dr. George Musgrave, who's joining us. And then we have Lisa Strong, Jenna Brown, AJ Henry. And we have a couple of IVA teachers joining us. We have one of our fellow directors, Andreas Grusso, coming to talk to us about Voce Vista. And who else we got? Oh, we got Melanie Tapson coming to join us. And Dr. Lynn Maxfield as well is coming.
That's right.
And somebody else. Who are we forgetting?
Carrie Reagan.
Yes, Carrie Reagan is coming to join us. Now, if you follow our monthly webinars, you might recognise some of those names because they did webinars for us last year on various topics that were really interesting. And so we're kind of looking forward to having a chat with them, getting to know a little bit more. Because you know me and Heather, we like to be nosy. We
are nosy.
Yeah, we like to ask all the questions that we want to know the answers to.
That's it. The whole reason for this podcast is just so that we get our own personal questions answered.
Yeah, it's like our own professional development show.
And if you listening at home are interested in them, then that's just a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's a very nice mix of people on some really very interesting topics that are really either directly related to singing or are very central around the idea of singing and what it can mean and senses of belonging and things like that. And so, yeah, it's going to be a good season. I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, just lots of interesting tidbits of information and interesting tips and advice. And like I say, we'll be here to ask all the questions that you never knew you wanted to know.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. And then it's also worth mentioning as well, because we're having our conference this year in Edinburgh, my home city. And so we're going to be doing a bonus episode of IVACON, and we're going to be out and about doing our roving reporters bit with our microphone, shoving it in people's faces and say, talk, and tell us things. And so we're going to do a special episode from conference where we just go around and interview lots of teachers from around the world.
That it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the conference in general, because whenever we get hundreds of voice teachers together in one place, it is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a riot.
There is a lot of learning that happens. Don't get me wrong. The conference is full of educational materials, but it's also full of lots of socialization. Mm-hmm. Lots of singing, because, you can't get a bunch of voice teachers together without doing a bit of singing along the way. And yeah, lots of getting to know new people, which is always fun as well. So our conference is in Edinburgh. What's the date of our conference?
Yeah, so it's June 17th to June 21st in the lovely city of Edinburgh. We're in a university campus, so we have the entire campus that we're taking over. The universities really don't know what's going to hit them.
It's really exciting. And our conference is open to, obviously, teachers who are already training through the Institute of Vocal Advancement, but we are also open to any other voice teachers that might be interested in what's going on at our conference. So how do they find out more about it, Tom?
Yeah, so this is the first time for us. Our conference has traditionally been just for IVA teachers, but we're opening it up to everybody because, we want to spread the joy of learning a little bit further. So yeah, just find it on our website, vocaladvancement.com. There'll be a link and a blog post with a bit more information about what's going on, who the speakers are, what kind of sessions and things you can expect, and then you can register. And I'm sure we'll be able to do a cheeky little podcast discount for our listeners. So we'll put a little sneaky discount code in the show notes for people so that they can get a little discount for listening.
Right. So yeah, get on it, people. Come join us in Edinburgh. We're looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Like, just not only being together again, because it has been quite a while because of COVID and the pandemic and stuff, but there's just something so nice about coming together and singing together and learning together and having a conversation, "Oh, what did you think of that class and what they were doing and stuff like that?" It's lots of fun like that, isn't it? Like there'll be so much stuff going on and people just wandering around talking about voice and singing random scales in the middle of corridors and bathrooms. It's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot, and people always go, kind of overwhelmed with the amount of information that they take away from our kind of core pedagogy sort of classes that are run by our IVA teachers to our more kind of, shall we say, geeky kind of in-depth sort of classes. And we get kind of guest speakers to talk quite in depth on certain topics. There's really something for everybody.
Yeah,
and it's open to teachers of all kind of experience levels and stages, because there is something for everybody. So whether you are someone who's been teaching for 30 years or whether you're someone who's just thought about starting teaching today, there's something that will suit everybody's needs.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of ways to benefit from it, and also contribute to it as well, because we want to take, and we try to take advantage of being in person as much as we can by being as practical based as we can. So, we try and encourage people that are giving classes to have practical elements in it, whether it's demonstrations or opportunities for people to do interactive teachings and things like that. So there's real opportunities to get up and participate, take part, have a shot. If you've never experienced the IVA core pedagogy before, it's a great way to get up and be a volunteer singer, or share your experience and how you would teach, and those kinds of things. So lots of opportunities for that practical hands-on learning, which is kind of our thing, isn't it, at IVA? We're all about the practical hands-on learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, what you can find sometimes is that as much as you've read everything or kind of, sampled every bit of information, without putting it into practice, it's almost a bit meaningless. You kind of need to be able to take this knowledge and learn how to put it into practice before it really benefits you as a teacher. Understanding and reading everything is great, but if you don't know how to put that information into the lessons to benefit your students as, kind of efficiently as you can, then what's the point? So, we're very much into, let's take that knowledge and show you how it works in the practical sense.
Yeah, and that kind of makes me think about like when we start as voice teachers, like getting started as a voice teacher, because we all have maybe different stories of how we got started or different backgrounds that we come from, but we all kind of end up on the same path and the same journey of wanting to better ourselves, to be better teachers, to be better singers, to help people better with their voices. And, how did you get started as a teacher? What's your story?
Well, I suppose I was quite young, really. I was at university and I was doing what my husband calls a degree in jazz hands. I was doing a performing arts degree. And I heard through the grapevine, a friend of a friend ran a children's theatre school and they were looking for a singing teacher. And my friend was like, well, you could go and do that. I dabbled a little bit, taught a few drama classes to kids. So I was like, it's a good way to, earn a bit of money while I'm at university. All right, then. Yeah. So I went along and I interviewed for the job. They gave me the job. I don't know why. I hadn't got a frigging clue what I was doing. I was absolutely winging it, making it up as I went along. But, I entertained the kids for an hour and they were quite happy with that. So I landed myself a job as a singing teacher, teaching a group of kids. And then that kind of spiraled. And then I got another job teaching another group of kids at another place. And then I got another one and another one. And before I knew it, I was working almost full time teaching singing and drama to kids, still without a clue what I was doing. I was mostly teaching repertoire, to be fair. I was like, here's a new song for us to learn. I'll sing a line, you sing it back. There we go. So after a little while of doing it, it wasn't for very long, after, maybe 6 months or so of doing this, I kind of figured I should probably actually go away and learn a little bit more about how to teach singing. Because normal people might have learned how to do it before they did it, but I was very much the opposite way around. So that's when I started training. So I started taking classes in singing. I was learning at the time through speech level singing and doing, regular training, regular lessons myself. I was teaching in front of people, and through learning that, it gave me, I suppose, the confidence to start offering lessons privately. So then I started doing that as well. And before I knew it, I had full-time work teaching singing, and I've not really looked back from it ever since.
Nice.
So yeah, that's how I got started. How did you get started, Tom?
Well, my journey started more as a singer. I wanted to sing in high school, but wasn't quite confident enough, so I did piano instead and dancing. And then I kind of turned, how old was I? 22, 23, and was like, oh, this is really annoying me. Like, if I don't sing now, I'm never going to do it in my life. So, man up and get on with it. So I found a singing teacher down south. She was a speech level singing teacher as well, and started doing like lessons every 2 weeks. I was really enjoying it, but was a nervous wreck most of the time because it's just like, oh, don't look at me when I sing. Oh no, let's not sing a song. Let's just do exercises. Let's not sing. Like as you go to singing lessons for. After about 3 months, she said to me, she's like, oh, have you ever thought about teaching? I was like, no, I haven't, but that sounds quite intriguing. And so she kind of explained to me how the program worked and what was involved and the kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, that sounds quite nice. I could do that on the side. Like, it's a way to pay for my own singing lessons, perhaps, and stuff. So I started training. I was the only teacher up in Scotland and doing like speech level singing training. So I kind of had to travel down to, it was your studio for stuff. And I traveled to London for training and to do classes and things like that. And then I put an advert on a random website that was like classifieds when I started teaching, and got a guy within like a day and was like, oh, what am I going to do now? Now what? I didn't even have anywhere to teach. I didn't have a piano or a keyboard in my house. Like I had nothing. So I had to find a rehearsal space for bands and be like, can I hire rooms? Can you give me a keyboard? Can I teach singing out here? And then I kind of just built my studio, and then they started doing stuff. They got lottery funding, so they started doing stuff with kids in the high school. So I started teaching. Like on a Friday afternoon when the schools come out early, all these kids would come along for like singing lessons, drum lessons, and guitar lessons. So you'd be like, here's 10 teenagers, go and teach them for an hour. And you're like, well, I don't know what to do with you lot, So just kind of had to learn, like make things up as you go along. Let's sing this song and see what happens. Yeah, I never really looked back, actually. I just, But we do it. I mean, I'm sure many of us can say the same thing. Like, you start and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, you totally have to blag it when you start. And I see this now, because obviously I run a studio and I have other teachers who work for me, and I will often encourage somebody that I think is suitable to train to do it, and I'll take them on and I'll kind of take them under my wing and I'll help mentor them a little bit while they're learning so that they can eventually work at my studio, and teach. And you see certain trends. So whenever I take on a new teacher and they start teaching, and I warn them of this, that within the first year of teaching, they have quite a high turnover of students. And the reason that they have quite a high turnover of students is because they start off without a single clue what they're doing. And they're essentially using that first year's worth of students as kind of guinea pigs to practice on, to figure out what to do, because you can't figure it out unless you do it. So you kind of have to get started, and you can't put it off forever. So you have to start, even if you've, kind of, again, like we were saying before, even if you've read up on it and you've, it in theory, still putting it in practice is a whole other skill set. So it's happened with pretty much every teacher I've taken on. In the first year, when they're learning it and they're figuring it out, the students don't stick around very long because they come for a few lessons and then they don't really get an awful lot out of it because they're not quite there yet. And they go, and it's fine, and that's normal. After about a year, you start to see that if they've got a new student on their schedule, that student leaves the lesson and almost immediately books another lesson. And when that starts happening, you're like, they've got it. They've figured it out. They know what they're doing now. They've spent that year figuring it out, and now they've got it. And that's when you really start to see their ability to take off as a teacher and really make a career out of it.
Yeah. I think people underestimate what it's like to be a singing teacher at the start, because there's so many things happening at once that you need to learn to manage and juggle. And at the start, you're just like playing the scales, focusing on the scales, focusing on which way do I go, where do I start, what do I give you? And then there's lots of nuances I think we miss when we're just starting out, that it takes a bit of time, a bit of experience, and a bit of repetition with the basics so that they become a bit more automatic. Like when you drive a car and like you have to think about when to change gears and all that kind of thing, but then eventually it just starts to become more and more, I was going to say automatic, but
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's one of those things that I think it's that shift from it being the focus being on yourself. Like, am I playing the scales right? Am I telling them to do it right? Am I to suddenly getting to a point where you can shift your focus to being more on the student, and kind of really kind of
absolutely
focusing my energy on them rather than spending the whole time worried about what you're doing. That's part of the shift, I think, that happens within that kind of first year of teaching and that getting that experience. It gives you that ability to forget about what you're doing because your fingers are doing it automatically now. You're playing the scales automatically, so you can focus more on, well, what is the singer doing? What can I help them with?
And because I was saying, like, there's so many different things, but there's so many different ways to learn as well. And I often found, for me, that my own teaching as a teacher took a jump as my voice got better, as I was able to demonstrate better what I wanted or what I didn't want from the singer. And they could hear in my voice what I was trying to get from their voices, so they had a point of reference. I found that really propelled my teaching forward. That they were, oh, so you want that, you don't want that, okay, right, I can do that, because they hear it and then they can, they mimic it back to you. And so that was a really, I think, a part for me personally that was perhaps maybe missing at the start when I started. I think I was just a bit too nervous as a singer still from my experiences and my own lessons to feel confident enough demonstrating. But it took time and it took experience in my own voice, and I think it's one of these things, isn't it? Like, there are just some things that come with time and experience, that you can't learn in a book, that you can't learn from a webinar. It's just time.
Absolutely. And one of the things that when I first started out, my students would know if I'd just been on a training week. And they used to say, "Oh, you've just been to a conference or something, haven't you?" Because suddenly I'd come back armed with a whole host of new tools and new ideas, and my ears were more tuned in to hear things. And so every time there was some kind of training event that I went to, the next lesson they'd be like, "Hang on, what's going on here?" Suddenly she's like being a bit more pernickety about what's going on, and a lot of it actually was the amount of time I spent observing more experienced teachers teach. So oftentimes we'd have kind of training events that would involve all the teachers in our area getting together, and we'd bring a more experienced teacher over and they would do some, kind of classes, theoretical classes. Here's how your vowels work. Here's how your consonants work, whatever. But they would also give all of those teachers a lesson. And our teachers would often sit in and watch each other have the lessons. And actually listening and watching a more experienced teacher teach, and even sometimes an equally experienced teacher observing them teach as well, you just get so much from that. And suddenly your ear is getting more tuned to hearing nuances that you weren't hearing before, or you'd see them approach something in a very different way from how you would have approached it. And so your brain's going, why have they done that? That worked really well. What happened there? And suddenly it just kind of made your teaching better. And still to this day, I like watching, people teach for that reason.
Yeah, it's very true. Like, we in our program, we have what we call panel testing in higher levels, where you do a teaching test of an advanced singer, and it's marked by the master teachers, all of the master teachers. And like, my preparation for that was to listen to hours and hours and hours of recordings of the master teachers teaching from the IVACON conference. And that was how I prepared myself. And also when they hear this is how they tend to go for it. And then I would try with my students. I'm like, okay, that works, that doesn't work. And I would refine my teaching based on what I heard them doing that was successful, and then applied it and kind of learned to build my skills that way, to work with more advanced singers. Because, at least in my studio, I can't speak for anybody else's studio, like, you don't always get advanced singers walking through the door. Most of the time, singers are less experienced. They maybe have different issues than somebody that's, been singing for 10, 15 years or been having singing lessons for a long time and an experienced teacher will have. So there's a kind of an art as well, I think, to learning to work with different levels of singers, that we kind of, the first time I had an advanced singer walk through the door, I was just like, oh, this will be easy because they'll be able to do everything and we'll be fine, we'll just sing. And then it was like the complete opposite. I was just like, oh, this is really hard because you have way more bad habits than somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Oh, no. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not always what you think it is, because like some people will think, oh, well, a beginner singer might be easier, but actually someone who comes in and they are struggling to sing in tune can be incredibly challenging to deal with. And like you say, sometimes teachers, especially when you're first starting out as a teacher, you do get intimidated by a really proficient singer, because it can be difficult to look through the talent to see the function of the voice and what you could help them do functionally better, because you're just, wow, that's amazing. Like, if Beyonce came in for a lesson, it would be difficult to overlook the fact that, wow, that's Beyonce. Like, I can't touch that. But at the same time, if you look deep enough, I'm sure, as with everybody on earth, because nobody's perfect, you would be able to find something that you could functionally tweak to make Beyonce's life easier. Whether you would want to or not, who knows? But do you know what I mean? It can be intimidating if somebody comes in and they're already quite skilled as a singer, to know what to do with them, especially when you're a beginner teacher.
Oh, and there's also the panic when they come in and they're like, oh crap, they can sing better than me. Shit, what am I going to do?
And that happens too. Yeah, there was, I can't remember who said it to me first, but there was definitely a realization for me at one point when somebody said, hey, listen, do you think 100 meters sprinters are coached by someone who can run faster than them? Oh, that's a good point. No, because if they could run faster than them, they'd be running the 100 meters. Not the runners that are. It's a different skill set. The people who coach the runners who can run the 100 meters faster than anybody else are the most proficient coaches. They're not necessarily the most proficient runners. And that really kind of readjusted my thinking on that particular subject.
That's a really good analogy, actually, for people that maybe do suffer that anxiety of a more experienced singer coming into the studio and they feel, kind of inferior to them. And like, circling back, because we did an episode talking about pitching in the last season. And like, I remember saying during that, and it's worth saying again, like, those singers that had the difficulties with pitching, that were really kind of basic level singers, those were really the ones that taught me the most about myself as a teacher, because when nothing in your rule book works and you have to throw the book out the window and just make it up on the spot, you learn so much more about yourself as a teacher and how to deal with those scenarios. Because let's face it, those were the scenarios that were walking through my door 15, 20 times a week versus the Beyoncés like once in a lifetime,
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to get creative.
Yeah, think outside the box, kind of, because not everything, and it is worth saying this, not everything will work, so that, like in IVA, we have go-to best practices and things like that are kind of what would you call it, like roadmaps for various things, and they're designed as a guide. They're not meant to be like the gospel truth of how to deal with a voice. It's like, here's a kind of rough guide to get you in the ballpark way of how to deal with this voice, but you do have to go off book and get creative, and because not everything will work, and not everything does work, because we're all human and we think and do differently, you know.
And I think that's part of the process of, you know, the teaching journey of kind of getting better as a teacher, is that you start off and you don't know what you're doing, and it's all, I have no idea. And then you learn the rules, you learn the basics, you learn that, okay, well, if I use this vowel, it should do this. And if I use this consonant, it should do this. And then you stick quite rigidly to the rules, because that shows you more results than when you knew nothing. And then as you develop a little bit further, you begin to go, okay, well, I know the rules so well that I can begin to get creative with them and use them just as a guideline, and you begin to suddenly take it outside again. And I feel like that's the journey everyone has to go on. I think if you miss that learning of the kind of the rules and being a little bit strict in, okay, I'm just going to follow a bit of a routine, I think sometimes you can end up stuck in that first phase of just kind of scrabbling around, not quite sure what you're doing for too long.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had voice lessons with like fairly experienced voice teacher, like more than one lesson on a regular basis, and it's been like the same routine every single week, and you're like, but it's not helping me. But you know, you're more experienced than me, so who am I to question? But yeah, thinking outside the box is really important to be able to help the person in front of you. You know, because at the end of the day, like,
yeah,
we do the training because we want to be better, because we want to help people faster. We want to get them to their goals faster. We want to help them find joy and passion in their singing. You know, we're not doing this to be like, I know more than you. Like, we're doing it to help people be better.
Oh, I am. I'm totally doing it to know more than me. I love nothing more than that superiority.
Well, for the rest of us that like to
Do you know, I think as well, and I often talk to like I say, the teachers that I kind of take in and I mentor and I get them started. I think when you're first starting off, you should just take every opportunity that presents itself to get out there and teach. So like, I've got a teacher working for me at the moment, and she's working in schools. She's done, you know, kind of group theatre schooly type kids classes. You know, she's taken on classes here. She's gone to do a choir. And she's taking on anything that kind of pops up. She's just going for it. And you learn through all of those different experiences. I think sometimes you can get a little bit too caught up on, I am one particular type of voice teacher and I'm only going to teach this particular type of person, which eventually is probably the right thing to do. But when you first start out as a teacher, I think the best thing you can do is just try everything. Have a go at everything. Take every opportunity that presents itself to you. And by doing that, then you really begin to get to know, what is it that I enjoy doing most? What sort of person do I, like teaching more than others? It might be that you absolutely love working with kids, and so that becomes the focus of your career from then on. Or it might be that you can't stand working with kids and you never want to go to any of them ever again. And then all right, in the future, I'm going to focus my efforts on, filling my studio with adults only. But when you're first started, I think it's important that you just take on anything that becomes available and you figure it out. You fake it till you make it.
Absolutely. And that it's a common question that we get asked from teachers in our program that I've just joined, and so do I wait till I finish the program before I start teaching, or when do I start teach? And the answer is always as soon as you possibly can. Teach your friends, teach your mum, teach anybody, teach free lessons, volunteer your time where you can, because the more you can teach, the more voices you can get under your ear, so to speak, the better for you and your development as a teacher. So I think that's kind of my number one advice for teachers is start teaching it as soon as you possibly can. Even if you don't know what you're doing, just give free lessons to get that experience.
couldn't agree more. I think it's a great way of doing it. In fact, I've had teachers in the past tell me that they've offered like a Groupon type thing. I don't know if everybody has that in their country. You know, different countries have different schemes, but it's like a voucher scheme where they offer, you know, a singing lesson at a ridiculously reduced rate. So if you normally charge £30 for a lesson, the Groupon, it might be £5 for the lesson. And what tends to happen with that sort of thing is that you get lots and lots of people wanting to use the offer. Not necessarily people who want to actually continue having singing lessons for any length of time, just people who are after a bargain. But it's exactly what you need when you're first starting out, because you just need lots of different voices. You need to hear as many voices as you can, and to go through that process of assessing the voice, figuring out what they need, talking to people, learning what they want from a lesson and seeing if you can deliver that. So something like that is a great way to just get going. Just get yourself the experience that you feel like you need to offer proper lessons.
Yeah, that's good advice. You know, and there'll be, I mean, like if you look around your local place that you live or nearby towns and cities, there'll be loads of opportunities for you to volunteer. There will be choirs that would love to have singing teachers come in and help and, you know, work with singers, or local community groups that would love to have things like that done. And, you know, I think there's probably still classified boards like Gumtree and things like that where you can probably post that you're looking for like singers and things, you know, Facebook Marketplace for another place probably. So I think you could probably find lots of ways to work. And I know, I mean, like, even because, like, you know, we're in a connected world now. You can work with anybody around the world. And we have, we had our summit recently, and we had a couple of teachers there, one from California and one in Ireland. And they met virtually via one of our conferences and are now study buddies. So they take turns at teaching each other. And then, like, they record it and listen back and they analyze and critique each other's teaching. And, like, I'm just like, it's such a wonderful thing that they're doing together, to have that insight and sharing with each other and experiencing. And then they teach other people, and then they watch each other teaching their students. And so it's just such a beautiful thing when I heard about it. It made me really smile to think about that.
Yeah, it's nice taking that initiative to kind of help each other. Sometimes you need that as well, that somebody to keep driving you, motivate you to keep pushing yourself to learn. Because although we feel our focus is on, we've got to learn it all before we start, but we never stop learning.
Exactly.
I am always learning. Like, not a day goes by where I'm not researching something else, reading something I haven't heard, talking to somebody about something, getting a new idea. I'm constantly trying to consume the ridiculous amounts of information there is out there, because I don't think it would be possible to actually consume and read and experience everything that you could out there. So there is always more that you can take on. There is always something to be learned.
Yeah. And we're lucky because there are so many places, like you say, to find that information. There are some amazing communities and forums and discussion groups that you can join and learn from and benefit and see other people. But, you know, something else of advice I was given when I was a young teacher, somebody was like, you know, just listen to as much music as you can, particularly like live performances. And, you know, like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all these places where people post videos, like there's an infinite source of singing out there that you can expose your ear to, and you can analyze and you can sit and think and see what's going on. And, you know, there are even people that will sit and analyze, like voice coaches that, you know, they do the reacts or the analysis of the voice. And so you can learn quite a lot of good information doing these. You know, you get stuck in a YouTube spiral and you just sit and scroll singer after singer after singer, but it's so good for your ear.
Scrolling at bedtime,
But I mean, seriously, it's so good for your ear because you get the opportunity to hear people that probably would never walk through your door, or you may never teach because they're just not in your area. And so, like, I love doing that and listening and like, oh wow, like I've never heard a singer do that before. Like, it's really, I find that fun. That's a lot of fun for me to do.
I guess the other area when you're first starting out as a voice teacher, the other area that maybe doesn't get discussed very often is the fact that when you become a voice teacher, you essentially become a business owner. You essentially become, you know, self-employed, and there's a whole host of other things that come along with that that you kind of have to start to learn about, whether that's, how to do your taxes, or whether you need certain licenses, where are you going to teach from, what equipment, like you were saying, what equipment do you have? Do you have the right equipment to teach with? What do I need to get started? And all of that side of things often gets kind of overlooked as, things that you might need to do. If you're starting out purely teaching for yourself, do you have a website? Have you had a website built? How do people find out about you? Where are
Yeah.
what sort of things do you need to do? And I think that's something that comes more naturally to some people than to others.
Yeah, running a business is a whole like learning experience as well. When I came at it, I was lucky because I already had been self-employed for many years, so it was just a same. I knew how to run a business. It was just in a different niche for me, so it was just adapting what I knew to work in the niche. But I have friends who have never taught before who are voice teachers, and they're like, where do I go for a website? Like, how do I make sure that I pop up in Google when somebody searches for singing lessons Edinburgh? Like, there's lots of that stuff that you just don't know and you don't appreciate. Like, and even, God, taxis. Ugh, the first time you have to do your taxi, that's not terrifying experience,
It's one of those things, because I think in America, everyone has to file their own taxes, don't they? But in the UK, you only have to file your own taxes if you're self-employed. So if you've always been employed and then suddenly you're self-employed, it is quite a shock to the system that suddenly you've got to keep receipts for everything and you've got to keep track of everything. And I tell you what, I was awful at that when I first started out. It would get to literally like 2 or 3 days before I was supposed to file my taxes, and I'd be running around the house trying to find all the receipts that were hidden in nooks and crannies around the place, in the car. Oh, there's one under the seat there. And I'd be putting it all together, and I'd be trying to write it all down and get my calculator out and work out what I'd spent and whether I could, and how many miles I'd driven and how much I could. And it was always, I'd spend 2 panicked days trying to bring it all together. I'm a little better now. I have a spreadsheet, and once a week I update the spreadsheet with the ins and outs. I'm much more organised now, but it's taken a long time to get to that point.
I do remember those days, and then you do it like the day before the deadline, and then there's like, holy crap, I have to pay tax now on the deadline,
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of, it's like, it's really similar to like what we were saying about there's so many different things and nuances going on when you're teaching a lesson. Like, there's so many things in the business that are nuanced that just take time to learn and get a process in place, or understand what you got to do, or who you need to speak to, or what you need to file. And, after a while, it just becomes second nature. You become organized, you get into a routine and a flow, don't you?
Absolutely. And you learn, like marketing, for example. When I first started out, I must have spent so much money advertising in all the wrong places, wasted money spent advertising in magazines that weren't really being given to people who were interested in singing and therefore didn't reach the target audience. Wasted money advertising in kind of ways that really weren't the ideal place to put my money. And it took a while to figure out, where's my advertising budget best spent in order to make sure that the people who are looking for me find me, and that kind of thing. It's just one of those things. You kind of have to try things out and realize that they're not the right thing for you, because it's different for everybody. Different parts of the world function differently. Certain marketing, employees will work better in one part of the world than another. And so you kind of have to work it out for yourself. What's going to work best for me in my area? How are people searching for singing lessons? How can I make sure that they find me? How can I drop that idea into people's heads that they might want to have a singing lesson? But you learn it as you go. You get better at it as you go.
You do. And just like a quick tip about that, like the way, because my background was like accounting and marketing, so like I knew a lot of stuff in theory, but the practical, hadn't done the practical when I first started being self-employed. And like one of the things that really helped me was looking at what other coaches in the city did, so like not necessarily singing coaches, but just like other people that were like one-on-one services, like therapists or, like physiotherapists and those kind of things, and how they marketed their services. It gave me lots of helpful information about how to market a one-to-one service like that. And that kind of helped me. But, there are loads of great resources out there for marketing, So I think what we should probably do with this episode is maybe we should do like a little blog post, because we can compile all the kind of like things that are helpful, places to find information and things like that people might find useful if they're just getting started as a singing teacher.
That is a great idea. Let's do that. And we, it won't be an exhaustive list, of course, because it will be a list made out from our brain. But if there's anything that we know that could be helpful to people, then go ahead and use it. And do you know what? It's one of those things that even people who've been teaching for 20 years, getting somebody else's idea and go, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's always helpful, It's always good to pick the brains of somebody else. So, yeah. And needless to say, obviously, we're going to say it because it's what we do, but getting the right training is important. Because, like I was saying, when I get a new teacher working for me, as in the first year, when they're just still figuring it out, they get a high turnover of students. So they're not building their business as such. They're just keeping it afloat. Once the education that they're receiving starts to kick in and they start to build the confidence through their experience, you see that change. And so making sure you are getting yourself educated on the topic and you're not just winging it forevermore. Winging it when you first start out, fair enough, but realizing that you need, some input and some guidance, I think is crucial to ensuring that you are able to deliver a service that is of a standard that will make people want to come back for more. So do not underestimate the importance of investing in your own education, as well as all those other things that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like just to understand the voice, how the voice works, how you can affect how the voice works positively and negatively, and all those other complementary topics, like even something simple as just like how to speak to people, how to handle people in certain situations, like that can be the difference between being an amazing teacher and a mediocre teacher that people don't come back to,
Absolutely.
So yeah, the right training is crucial, and we'll just shamelessly plug, the right program, because our program is we try and think of like building well-rounded voice teachers. Like there's obviously the core concepts, the core pedagogy, teaching methodology, but there's all the, like you say, there's all the complementary topics, marketing, business, psychology, neuroscience, and all that kind of stuff that really can help you to develop as a really well-rounded and well-experienced voice teacher. So yeah, a good training program like that should give you all the skills that you need to function as a great voice teacher.
Absolutely.
Shameless plug over.
We're the bestest, so there.
I mean, it's the vocal advancement podcast. We could not plug our own vocal advancement program.
But seriously, guys, it's the bestest. So, yeah, I think we should probably conclude this episode because we could ramble on for weeks and weeks reminiscing about our mistakes and failures that we made along the way. Maybe we should do another episode at some point that does that, because anybody who's been teaching as long as me, because obviously, I started teaching when I was 18 and now I'm, 21, obviously. So I've been doing it a fair long time. And you can't teach for that long, all those, 3 years and a bit more. You can't teach for that long without making mistakes along the way. And I do like to pass those mistakes on to people and help them not to make those mistakes so that maybe they can go forth and make other mistakes and learn from those instead.
And then share those with others.
Pass it on. Spread the joy of all the mistakes that we've learned from.
Yeah, we should do a book. Like, we should do a book about, funny voice lesson experiences. Like, we could probably, between all of us, we could probably have some amazing stories.
Oh, my word. Yeah. And the people you meet, there'd be some fantastic stories about the
Oh, good. I
vast
mean, I
array
can
of
think of some.
personalities that walk through your door as a voice teacher too.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's a
That's
whole
a whole
different
other
episode.
episode, that is too. Maybe we'll sketch that in for the next season.
Maybe we'll put that in season 3. Yeah, season 3. The people that you meet.
Oh, I love it. So we've got, like we say, lots of special guests coming up this season. So do make sure that you are fully subscribed and getting notifications for when the next episode drops. Tom, just remind them how to do that because that's too technical for me.
Yeah. So you got to make sure wherever you're listening to this, whether it's a podcast player or it's on YouTube or you're in Spotify, that you hit the subscribe or the follow button so that they tell you when the next episode comes out. And then we're going to be episodes every single week. So there'll be 13 episodes back to back for you, full of all these interviews. And then we'll have our bonus episode that comes out July after the conference.
Amazing. Looking forward to it all. It's going to be a great season.
It is. We there are really some really interesting topics that are really, really, like, I find them really fascinating to talk about. So yeah.
Amazing.
It'll be great for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm going to love
That's
it.
all that matters.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us today, everybody. And we look forward to letting you listen to us. I'm like, look forward to seeing you. We're not going to see you. Well, we're not going to see you, but you're going to hear us and maybe see us if you're watching us on YouTube, because they can do that too, can't they, Tam?
That's right.
And
they can, yeah. You can see us on YouTube.
You can join us for the next episode and we will be with you then.
Yes. Well, have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in episode 2.